Following Sunday's ceremonial launch, the core training of the inaugural Transformation Leadership Academy Bootcamp for Teachers officially kicked off at the Pastoral Center in Buea, gathering selected educators representing 8 benchmark secondary schools across Bamenda, Buea, and Limbe. The intensive program's first 2 main training days systematically guided participants from internal personal formation to the deliberate engineering of classroom culture. The main curriculum opened on Monday, August 3 with the formation arc, focusing on teacher identity, subconscious patterns, and emotional self-regulation. Morning facilitators Madam Nicolene Awumbom Musi and Madam Doris Ngum challenged teachers to examine who they are beyond their professional titles. Madam Nicolene noted that approximately 90% of human behavior stems from the subconscious mind, meaning unexamined personal habits rather than conscious pedagogical choices often dictate classroom environments.
The identity conversation is very important because you cannot give what you don't have. If, for example, it does not perceive that you need to be patient, even with your own self, there's no way you can exercise patience with other children.
It was an interesting session to go through with the teachers, because sometimes we don't take time to valorize them a lot. And it was important for them to understand that they do have value and to understand the power that they have as a people to influence the life of the whole nation, because there's nobody that does not pass through a class.
Using practical visual metaphors, such as adding sugar to change the sourness of lemon juice, she emphasized that personal transformation requires replacing unhealthy reactions with intentional habits. The session drew a clear line between behavior modification through fear-driven compliance and authentic values-driven transformation rooted in understanding. She stressed to participants that the ultimate goal is not to produce obedient students, but transformed individuals, and that discipline should always serve the child's development rather than the teacher's convenience. Madam Doris Ngum expanded on this by introducing the power of one, utilizing the circle of control versus circle of influence framework to urge teachers to direct their energy towards self-growth rather than external limitations. In the afternoon, Pastor Silas Achu led the second session on emotional regulation, introducing a core framework for high-stress school environments, the distinction between a thermometer teacher and a thermostat teacher. While a thermometer teacher simply reacts to noise, lateness, and disrespect, escalating tension and operating out of immediate emotion, a thermostat teacher pauses before reacting, actively regulating the room's emotional climate and leading from long-term values. Through practical role plays, teachers mapped out common triggers and practiced pausing to listen and respond thoughtfully rather than reacting out of frustration. On Tuesday, August 4, the bootcamp transitioned into culture architecture, shifting the spotlight from personal formation to intentionally designing daily classroom environments. Morning facilitators Madam Doris Ngum and Coach Silas introduced the concept of the everywhere classroom, demonstrating that students consciously absorb values through the hidden curriculum. Unspoken lessons communicated through a teacher's appearance, punctuality, emotional control, and daily routines.
The purpose of that session was to raise the awareness of the teachers to understand that teaching begins way before the first lesson is taught. And one of the things that we wanted the teachers to realize is that as much as they have a subject to teach in class, in reality, most of what the students are getting from them is the hidden curriculum. And the hidden curriculum is the behaviors, the attitudes, the cultures, the things they're picking from the teacher that the teacher is not actually intentionally teaching.
It has been so impactful, because from what we have discussed, what we have learned, I've even seen that there are so many other things that are embedded in us teachers that we don't know, and there are some too that we are doing that we are supposed to improve on, in order that the teaching learning process should be very perfect without friction,
and so that the children too, they can learn without having difficulty.
The discussions have been frank and fruitful. We've had very frank discussions where people have actually given real life testimonies what they have experienced, and from there we have been able to come up with some general principles that will go a long way to help also go on the field.
To assist teachers in executing intentional discipline without damaging student dignity, the session introduced the Pause, Ask, Learn, Name and Guide framework, encouraging educators to regulate their emotions, understand the learner's perspective, and direct them toward expected behavior while preserving their dignity. Participants closed the morning with a collective declaration affirming that because the classroom is always teaching, they will choose to teach by design. The afternoon session, led by Coach Eric, centered on the promise that every classroom already has a culture, and the only question is whether it was designed deliberately or formed accidentally. Coach Eric challenged educators to elevate the teaching profession as a pillar for societal development before introducing the 5 culture levers for practical implementation. These levers focus on non-negotiable daily behaviors, positive language that eliminates put-downs, visual artifacts that communicate values, simple weekly traditions that foster belonging, and inspiring folklore stories repeated over time. Working in peer-reviewed pairs during the design lab, each teacher constructed a realistic, sustainable culture plan. Coach Eric reminded the cohort that a plan that works only when a teacher is energetic is not yet sustainable, emphasizing that culture is built through small, scheduled, and repeated choices.
So culture is already happening in every classroom, whether we know it or not. But intentionally taking time as a teacher to build culture is what is going to make it even more impactful. So my session was titled The 5 Culture Levers, and I was exposing to the teachers and helping them to bring out those 5 levers which can be used to build culture, behavior, language, folklore, tradition, and artifacts. And if they master how to use it, they can transform any classroom from an ordinary classroom into a powerful, culture-driven classroom, which can be used to transform a whole school and a whole community.
Across these first 2 intensive days, the participating fellows moved from personal self-reflection to drafting concrete, sustainable culture blueprints for their home schools. As the bootcamp moves into its remaining modules on systems, execution, and school-wide alignment, these educators are laying the groundwork to serve as anchor points of educational transformation across the region.